Hello, everybody. I'm Joshua Gray, and welcome to the Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms panel here at Comic-Con at Home. Produced by Warner Brothers Animation in coordination with NetherRealm Studios and Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms will be available starting August 31st on digital, Blu-ray, and 4K Ultra HD combo pack from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. That's right. Joining us now are 6 individuals vital to the production of the film. Please meet, first of all, producer and general overlord of the Mortal Kombat Legends movie, Rick Morales. Great to have you here, Rick.
Yeah.
Oh.
And next, the man behind the words, screenwriter Jeremy Adams. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello.
The co-creator of the worldwide video game franchise sensation and creative consultant on these films from NetherRealm Studios, Ed Boon.
Ed.
The voice of Raiden, Dave B. Mitchell. Hello, Dave.
Howdy.
The voice of Liu Kang, and coming to us live from Australia, Jordan Rodrigues. Woo! Great to have you, Jordan. And finally, the voice of Johnny Cage, Joel McHale. Hello, Joel.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Woo!
Thank you.
Definitely shorts weather here, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So this question is going to be open-ended, but I want to pitch it over to Rick first. Your first film, Mortal Kombat Legends, Scorpion's Revenge, was a hit with critics, fans, and in sales. So in terms of action, blood, characters, and the acting, how did you find ways to top the original?
You know, it is difficult, but like everything, we go back to the source material. You know, I mean, the Mortal Kombat games have been topping themselves throughout their history. So we just sort of key into that and just kind of, you know, go with it, and just unleashing the artists, you know, to kind of do what they think is fun and grotesque, and, you know, will work in this way.
Jeremy, did you feel unleashed in the script after the success of the first one? Like, oh, we can do more, we can go further.
Listen, I'm totally scared of every storyboard artist now, and I try to give a wide berth to them because when I saw some of the animatics and saw what they did, and then thinking about what we could possibly do, you know, it definitely sparked my imagination. But, you know, are we going to touch what Ed and his team does? It's like we're trying to. This is definitely one of those times where I watched it and I went, oh, this is too much even for me. Like, I was like, oh, I told Rick, I go, I don't know. He goes, you wrote it. I go, yeah, but it's different. Like, and then you give it to these genius artists that suddenly something happens and you're like, oh, that's just terrible. Like, you shouldn't show that.
Ed, for you, I remember when we had the panel for the first film of like, maybe we've gone a little bit too far here with some of these fatalities and some of the brutal nature of the movie, but it was absolutely what the fans wanted. So for you, knowing that this sequel was going to happen, did you think, you know, how can we top the first one?
I don't know if I was thinking about topping it. I thought the first one did such a great job of establishing this cut of the universe. It's almost like a multiverse thing. There's this alternate Mortal Kombat that was so well put together in terms of establishment, you know, getting Scorpion's thing down. And so there was a foundation, and it's just, you know, now you can just go crazy with it. This is the next evolutionary step with it. It absolutely lives up to the hype, and couldn't be more excited about it.
And Dave, the voice of Raiden, I know you were very excited to be a part of this project. What was it like for you, you know, seeing what happened in the first film and knowing what happens in the games to be Raiden in this film?
Oh, I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, I was telling Ed earlier that I've been a huge fan of Mortal Kombat since day one. So to get to step in and actually play Raiden, you know, one of the cornerstone characters, and I love what they did with Raiden in this. I love what they did with all of the characters, and like he was saying, that just sort of that you know, reboot alternate thing where you have the basis of that core story, which has been consistent through everything, and they've done such a good job throughout all the games, really expanding that story, especially when they went into MK11. All that multiverse stuff was really, really great, and then to be able to do that with this, and, you know, hopefully find, you know, another dimension to Raiden, which certainly came out of the writing. But yeah, just to be involved with all this stuff. The first movie, you know, when I watched it, as a fan, I was just blown away by how great it was. So to get to kind of take it the next step here with this is pretty exciting. And I think people are going to be pretty happy with what we gave them. So.
And Jordan, for you playing Liu Kang, who definitely is the heart of this film, it's great to see that character continue in that journey. What was it like for you coming back to play Liu Kang?
Oh, it was an absolute honor to be asked to come back. I had so much fun on the first film. It was 3 days work, and I just had a ball. You know, we did 1 day of voice work, and then the second day was just all screaming. So I had a lot of fun. I got a workout in, and did the same thing for the second film, and yeah, very honored to be back.
And Mr. Joel McHale, everybody's been talking about your performance as Johnny Cage. Now we all kind of hear Johnny Cage when we're either playing the game or watching the films. So for you coming back, it feels like you're just entrenched with the character.
Yeah, after my stunning turn on Open Season 2 a few years ago, I think everyone was like, "Oh, he should definitely be in an ultra-violent animated movie." And everything everyone's already said. I grew up with the game. I lost so many quarters happily into it. So, and then to know that this movie didn't pull any punches and was just as wonderfully violent and beautiful was, is just like a dream come true. And I found it hilarious that before we started this panel, they were like, "Hey, can you guys not swear because there's people under 18? And you're like, "Yeah, the decapitation they saw, totally fine, but don't swear." So I'm thrilled. I'm finally cool for about 2 minutes with my kids. So that alone is thank you for having me.
So worth it. Totally worth it. Now, Rick, when it comes to elements that were crucial to include in this sequel, what was that decision making like? And did it come down to specific characters, their powers, locations? Were there things very in particular you wanted to happen in this film?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we started the first one, Jeremy and I talked about where it would go if we did a sequel, so we had a plan in our head of where to take this thing. And for me, the first one was so much about Scorpion, and that was great, but to me, the heart of it is Liu Kang, and so him coming to the forefront in this film, I felt like was very important, and sort of, starting the movie with him and exploring, his relationship with Raiden. I really felt that was the key.
And it definitely is so well done because you can feel the relationship between these characters. Even though we've seen them in different iterations within this film, within this series, they feel so connected and so grounded. And there's so much power in that because you have to balance so many different characters and so many different fights that happen. So Jeremy, for you, I mean, what did you learn from the first film, from the first script, that process that helped inform decisions and executions in this sequel? Because there were so many wonderful character moments, so many great fights. It just felt like all the best from the first one times 10.
We knew that pretty quickly that we were going to be able to get a second one. And so there was kind of a concurrent thing that we got to do. And Rick and I, as we talked with Dominic and Ed, and we saw this vast universe, and it's like, how do we explain to the audience that, that Mortal Kombat is more than just punching and kicking? It's like this mythology. And we wanted a chance to really kind of like condense and use as much as we could in this, two-story like book chapters, I guess. And we knew that, and thank goodness this movie's coming out so Twitter can get off my back for a minute. People are so angry. They're like, what did you do to Liu Kang? And I'm like, no, like I literally, we said at the end, it's like, your job is not to beat Goro. You're gonna have a bigger destiny. And so that became the heart and engine of the second movie. And I think is so important because we give Liu Kang his due. And it was so gratifying to be able to go, okay, here are the through lines. Our problems were that, thank goodness we had Dominic and Ed to kind of like move us through this. I think, I'm totally hyped up on energy drinks all the time, and I turned in like large drafts to Rick, and it's just like, well, I don't know, you figure it out. Let's cut what we could cut, because I could do 100 more of these movies because there's so much to the mythology. So now it's like, hey, we still have to service kind of what happened in the previous movie. We have to talk about the destiny of Liu Kang. We have to talk about Joel McHale, which, by the way, you know, during the first movie, the record, I get a call from Rick that's like, you better be writing more Johnny Cage right now. You know, Joel's just too good. Do it right now. I'm like, okay, I'll do it right now.
I'll stop bothering you on Twitter, by the way.
Yeah, please.
That was actually Joel that called you. It was an impression.
Yeah,
but his,
yeah, that good. Yeah.
This is Rick calling. It's Rick. I always talk like this. More stuff for Joel. Okay, bye. Wait, it's Rick again. Go get bagels.
More. So I had a ball. I'm really excited for people to see it because, again, it's like I've had to lie for a year too. It's like, are you going to do a sequel? It's like, oh, I don't know. You know, it's like, yeah, we are, because animation takes forever.
I'm curious about the creative process between the filmmakers and NetherRealm Studios. Obviously, you're able to pull from so much of the mythology of the game, and this is getting close to 30 years of video games and the whole franchise of Mortal Kombat almost. And I'm a giant fan of the mythology. So many different games, so much different media that we can pull from. But what are those meetings like? And Ed, I'll direct this question to you. What are those meetings like? How does that process happen? And how early do those conversations happen in order to go, okay, let's do this, let's do that. That makes sense in the animated world.
You know, it usually starts, we'll get like 8 or 9 different story directions that they, you know, clearly these guys have more ideas than they have time to execute them. So it'll be, you know, 8 or 9 story directions featuring a variety of different characters. You know, again, we're approaching 100 characters in the Mortal Kombat universe. So there's such a big palette of them to read. Dominic and I will read them, and we'll kind of narrow it down to ask a few questions back and forth, narrow it down, exchange of emails and Zoom calls. And once we kind of all get excited about one particular one, or the most excited, then it's those guys run off and do the script, and we start iterating, reading scripts and going back and forth. It's they're very collaborative in terms of getting, you know, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And adjusting for the concerns that we bring up. It's very collaborative.
Jordan, thanks again for joining us all the way from Australia. But your voice and your presence is becoming so synonymous with Liu Kang, right? I remember the interview that we had in the first panel, and you know how honored that you felt to be representing Liu Kang. And here, you crushed it, you nailed it, you brought that purity and that warrior spirit once again. For you, does it feel like you have even more ownership or equity in this role? Like, are you buying the action figures? You know, are people coming to you and asking you more about Liu Kang? Because you're killing it, man. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, as I said, the first film was sort of my first animation voice work, and I was sort of just trying to figure it all out, get the lay of the land. And once I saw the first film, I was like, oh, okay, that's how you do it, right? So when coming back into the second film, I had a better understanding of how to bring this character more to life. And yeah, I love Liu Kang. I love his energy, and I love his heart, and he's a great guy. He's a great guy. But yeah, absolute ball getting to play him for a second time.
Knowing what was happening in the film of more of the focus being on Liu Kang, did that change your approach at all? I mean, you had mentioned seeing the final result in the first film. Did that change how you approached the script, how you were looking at the lines, or how you prepared it all? Or do you just feel more comfortable in the role?
Yeah, absolutely. It just felt a bit more comfortable. It's hard to sort of be, Ethan did a great job of reading alongside me, but I'm used to sort of acting alongside other actors. So that was kind of the tricky part for me. So going into the second film, I had just, a bit more comfortability acting with myself in a way.
And Dave, as Raiden, do you have any memorabilia as Raiden? I know you're a huge fan of Mortal Kombat. Or did you look at other performances or other iterations, and did that help inform the decisions that you made for this film?
I mean, I have, I've got, any number of, I've got a cool Raiden shirt and all that kind of stuff, because that's the thing. I was already a fan anyway, so it wasn't a big stretch to kind of do that. As far as as far as the other performances, you know, there have been some iconic takes on Raiden, you know, throughout the years that are wonderful. I guess that probably is in the back of my head somewhere, just because, you know, you kind of, that all gets folded in when you're thinking about the mythology of it and the history of the character. But really, I just kind of tried to follow where they were going with this iteration of Raiden, where, you know, he's obviously, he's one of the most powerful characters in the you know, the Mortal Kombat universe, but there is, you know, a wisdom and a serenity to him, despite all the incredible violence. There is a serenity just because he is that powerful. So he's able to sort of, you know, speak softly and carry a big stick kind of thing. And I feel like just the way that they wrote it from the very beginning, I was like, oh man, this is fantastic. And just kind of following where they were leading me with where the character was going. Yeah, I mean, I loved getting to play him, and just because Raiden's such a cool character, and to be able to just sort of have that quiet strength thing, which I think was the biggest thing I was going for with all of it, because it's what's there in the writing, was that his quiet strength is always apparent. So that's, I think, kind of what that was sort of my keystone for where to go with him. And yeah, it was such a great experience to get to you know, take that on. Not that I'm in any way trying to replace anyone else who's ever played Raiden, but it's, you know, this version of Raiden it was a joy. It was a joy.
Everybody knows you're trying to replace the old Raidens, so don't try to be humble there.
Well, now they do. Thanks, Joel.
Yeah, it's
very
Christopher
territorial.
That's the guy that's out for blood.
Yeah. There's plenty of multiverses for multiple Raidens for sure, but we loved your performance in this one. And also there's plenty of multiverses for Johnny Cage's. So for Joel McHale, what is your favorite part of Johnny Cage as a character, and why do you relate so well as an actor to that type of character?
He's the best and most important character in the entire franchise, and everybody knows that. And they're all, you know, Jordan and Dave are all kind of pissed, but I get it. No, look, I love the character. I went over to Dave's background dojo. As you can see, he has on his screen, very cool. And you know, Johnny Cage gets to tell a lot of jokes, and obviously Dave and Jordan have the heavy lifting to do with, you know, moving the story along, and I get to screw around and have, you know, that thankfully Rick and Jeremy and Ed let me improvise a lot, and I was like, how was that? And they're like, okay, just keep going. Where we only have a certain amount of time in this studio in Burbank, so can you please keep talking? Can you say the lines? Can you please advance the story at some point? I got another idea. And so it was just like a wonderful blast, and I think I can relate to the character because you know, I'm very good at playing faux and actual arrogance. So it's a mixture of both. But so it goes back to, you know, like with animation, you guys get to, you know, make these beautiful pictures, and you know, the sky's the limit. So there's probably 80 hours of extra talking that was not as good as the writing. So I thank you for humoring me. But so as far as, yeah, relating to the character, yeah, I love my cell phone. How about that?
Did you practice wearing the sunglasses? That's the question. Did you have to do sunglasses?
Oh yeah,
practice,
I David Caruso'd the crap out of it.
Yeah, I could see it. I could feel it. Yeah, it was there.
Yeah, I tried to get the Who song every time I took my glasses off, but Jeremy didn't want to pay for it.
Oh gosh, my Bitcoin has really gone down, guys. I can't afford it.
Yeah, super
Well,
fun.
we could say that Johnny Cage represents the obnoxious strength, but let's talk more about Raiden, that quiet strength. There was a lot of the philosophy of Raiden displayed in this film, fighting today's battles to relieve future generations of that burden. Jeremy, what inspired the representation of Raiden in this way, the tired warrior spirit taking a chance on peace? Where did that come from?
I mean, I think it's kind of it's if you've ever hung around with anybody in the armed forces a little bit, or anybody that is in some sort of self-sacrificial position where they have to put their bodies on the line because it's like, hey, I'm doing this so other people can have, relative peace or whatever. In the context of our story, you have Shao Kahn that is like, okay, I didn't win the tournament, so now I'm just gonna, nuke this world, and then eventually I'll be able to win the tournament by, ruling the world, I guess, over many centuries. I think Raiden makes that calculated risk, and because he is this guardian, and to me, he's this person that actually, the dimension that we wanted to explore is that he actually cares about Earth and Earthrealm. And so he doesn't just go, yeah, we'll make this deal. I'm also going to strip a part of myself so that I can try to assure this thing is going to happen. So it's a sacrifice, because he's willing to put his money where his mouth is. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to sit back, you guys do what you need to do. It's, I'm going to put some skin in the game as well. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to help in this kind of final winner take all battle. But I also think he has not just that sacrifice, but also faith in the people that he's picked. And faith mostly, I feel like, because it's what this movie deals with in Liu Kang. It's like, that's his struggle. It's like, I'm a god, but I'm going to do this thing. But I also have faith in him that he's going to be able to do the thing that I chose him to do.
And Ed, we were able to see these characters in the previous film just showcased in beautiful ways with wonderful performances. And we get to see that again in the second film. For you to see a character like Raiden, who's been with Mortal Kombat since the beginning, I mean, what's it like to see a character like that portrayed in such a beautiful way that so many people can relate to, or it feels that the film is able to express Raiden in a way that we get kind of parts and pieces in the video game, but not as much of a heavy emphasis?
Well, I think with all the characters, Raiden included, there is just, this, again, these films carved out a slice of multiverse version of Mortal Kombat. So we're reintroducing them in some ways again. Some people who might not have seen a couple of the films or played all the games. It's such a great, it's like a nice reboot of it. And there's always the common stuff, the nobility, the sacrifice, but I love his story takes a turn that we've never really explored in the games. And that's what makes it that somewhat more exciting, is seeing these characters, the foundation of them, but what happens, you can't predict everything that's going to be happening. So Raiden, along with all the other characters, is, represented consistently with the games, but the circumstances is different and the actions they take is different. That to me is one of the most exciting things about seeing this. I feel like I'm seeing something fresh too, and I've been involved with this franchise since the beginning.
Agreed. It's quite exciting, and especially fans of Mortal Kombat that has loved and played this game for so many years, to see the characters in this way. I mean, I have cheered from my couch watching different scenes here, and one of those scenes is, it may seem like it's simple, but it just shows how good the animation and the decision behind the animation is. And this question is for you, Rick. There are moments like when Liu Kang pushes off the ground, pivots, and jumps off. It could have been a section that you cut, but it shows how much weight and gravity Liu Kang is pushing off from, and how much power he has pushing off the ground. And I felt that. I felt that weight, even in an animated feature. So what's the trick of doing great fight scene choreography and pacing it well in an animated film?
Well, I think especially for these, it is those little moments that give things just a little bit more weight. It's really laying into the impacts, showing people get hit, and showing, a little bit of squash and stretching things, in animation to kind of emphasize those hits. But really, it's starting with really talented storyboard artists that, first visualize these fight scenes and make them up, out of whole cloth. They, we reference the games and all that, and try to get as many moves that are legitimate in there as we can, to keep it real. But yeah, for a sequence like that, it starts with storyboard artists really digging into it, and then Ethan, our director, and myself sort of looking over it and always trying to just plus those moments and make sure that they have, a lot of weight and impact behind them.
So along with the amazing fight scenes, the huge epic battles, every character has wonderful moments. And it's those small still moments that help build the emotional weight of what the stakes really are a little bit later. And for this version of Johnny Cage, this is a kinder, gentler, still arrogant, still, a bit ornery. But this take of Johnny was fun to watch because you got to see the subplot weaved into this narrative of the script. So what was it like adding this subplot into the script and then performing with this romantic angle all during a giant blood action fest? So Jeremy, how did you make that work in the script? And then after Joel, how'd you make that come to life?
I just scribble down words and hope that Joel can fix it, because honestly, that's the magic. It was a big script. I mean, part of it was that I could take a little more time, especially on the second script, and then Rick can tell me, no, that's too much there, and then I got to cut this, you got to fix it, and it's like, oh, okay. But it just seemed like the logical next step to those characters that are really, to me, in Mortal Kombat, is like, those are the Joey and Pacey for those kids of the 90s that are totally watching this. They're the romantic entanglement that I root for. And luckily, I mean, just to go back to it, it's like, luckily Ed and Dominic were so instrumental in showing us what pitfalls to avoid, and what parts of the mythology we could push or pull back on. And but the Johnny, like, Sonya thing, to me is the Han Solo Princess Leia. It's that it has a little bit of a beating heart unto itself that's not as serious as what's going on with Liu Kang, because Liu Kang stuff is like destiny and all that stuff. I didn't answer your question, but I'm sure Joel will have a better answer.
Dawson's Combat, though, I want to see that show.
Dawson's Combat would be
Dawson's Combat.
I want to see it.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Jeremy. It was similar to the script, and I didn't know what you were saying, but no.
I wrote it in Helvetica. No, I wrote it in Wingdings, and then he just interpreted the whole thing.
It was hieroglyphics. It was I insult Jeremy to only compliment him, but I said, like, I told a lot of jokes, but that little story, and I think a couple times where I was like, hey guys, this is a really good romance. I said it a few times, like, this is a really good story. This is like, and they were like, yeah, dummy, we're professionals. So I was like, what did you expect? Because it's like getting in a new car. I was like, hey, this is actually nice. It was like, what do you think? Of course it is. And so it was I signed on to do the thing before I even read it, because I was just like, Johnny, what? Yes. And then that little story, I mean, obviously there's so many movies that attempt cool B stories like that and fail miserably. And this one, I was just like, oh, I was so happy. And at one point I got emotional in the booth. I hate to admit that. And Jeremy and Rick were very embarrassed for me. But it was just this nice, really well told little story, and a part of it, and it's allowed to see a whole other side of John and build this new part of Johnny Cage that probably wasn't seen as much. And so I had again, we all keep saying it, that we had a blast doing it, except for Jordan. You could tell he was miserable, but Australians. So, but it was just such a well told. You could separate that thing and make it, and give it to, I don't know, Matthew McConaughey, and he could turn it into a romantic comedy, like. But so I was just so pleased by because you could make this super violent movie and this super stylized movie, which it is, it's beautiful, but without a well-told story, it would probably be not great. And the story is really solid, and it's got multiple layers, and that can't ask for more out of a movie script, especially when you're, it's 120 pages or whatever, and you better tell that story, and it does in spades. I'm complimenting my own work. Thank you.
I just to add to what Joel is just saying, I think that's the thing that really stands out with this, is that there's a perception of Mortal Kombat as a franchise. It's ultra violent. Going back to all of the uproar when the game first came out. The first one, but there's so much story and character development and depth and nuance to the way that this story is expressed and with these characters. And again, I think the whole cast, just everybody blew me away. And the writing, the look of it, but what Joel is saying is that the story really is at the heart of this. And there is, from what like Ed was saying, there's so much story there to tell. But I think that they really successfully dug into that and found subtle places to sort of fill in some of those gaps when you look at the big screaming blood and fighting, but there's a point to all of that with the story and for these characters, and I just think they've done a marvelous job in really fleshing that out. And like Joel was saying, it's all about the story with this. Yeah, it looks gorgeous and the fatalities and the fighting there, and that's amazing. But the thing that I think is drawing people to it, and the reason they're responding to it, is that there's real story and real characterization and real human moments to all of this, that everybody is, that it's relatable. So I just even as a fan stepping back from involvement with it, I couldn't laud enough praise on you guys for what you've done with this, because it's really great. It's beautiful. And again, to echo Joel, just because I like echoing Joel, is the story. It's all about the story. Everything else is setting, but the story is what absolutely drives the whole thing, which isn't, has to, but you don't always get that. Sometimes when you get into a kind of an action realm, you can get carried away with the big set pieces and the action stuff, and it's a lot of fun. But this has all of that, plus it's got that undercurrent of heart to it, which is amazing.
I always go the model of, if somebody had never heard of Mortal Kombat and never played the game and was under some rock for the last 30 years, would they enjoy a movie like this? And I look at that, I think it goes back to that story. If you didn't know Raiden, if you didn't know Liu Kang, any of those things, like, would you just dial into the mythology? And I think the story is what drives that. And I think it does, unless, people have a problem with a lot of stabbing and blood, but stylized. And so I think it pulls that off. I think, like my wife, she does not care about video games. I know what's wrong with her, right? But she was like, this is great. And I'm like, see, your husband does something during the day. So I think it stands alone, and you could just show it to someone.
Well, I think the beauty of that too is that I feel like it absolutely does service to existing fans, but it also has an appeal for new fans, because it does bring you everything you need to say, look, this is a brand new idea. If you've never heard of it, again, echoing Joel, that's going to be the title of my new album, Echoing Joel. But absolutely. So as a longtime fan, it appeals to me. But I think the great thing is that, like he was saying, you can introduce this to a whole new audience that knows nothing about it, and they're sucked in because it's got all the elements that you need to say, wow, this is a really cool thing.
And so much is packed in every single frame, and every single moment pays off, from the battles to the conversations. Each moment makes the richness of the character that much deeper, and the stakes that go much higher. So Rick, as a producer, how did you go about balancing the story, the action, the humor, and the fan service epic fighting? And was there too much that you had to cut?
well, Jeremy knows, and he's mentioned it. This script was very long. There's a lot more.
It's not my fault, by the way. I mean, I'm just
absolutely your fault. We
talked about it. Like
not here, guys. Stop the fans.
This is generally how it goes between. No, there's a lot. There's a lot in the mythology, and there's a lot that we wanted to show to the fans, give to the fans, and we couldn't include it all in this, because really what we had to do was distill it down to what are the most important story moments, what drives this film. And I think I spoke about it before, but that sort of father-son relationship with Raiden and Liu Kang is the most important part of this. So once we kind of keyed in on that, and then we have our B plots that carry the characters through, it became easier to balance all these other moments. But I think to what Joel was saying, it is really important. This could very easily become this kind of schlocky gore fest B movie thing, and I have no interest in making those type of films. And when you look at the Mortal Kombat video games, there is so much lore, there's so much story, there are great characters there, and you know, we have the ability to sort of bring that out in a little bit more extended way and show that stuff and explore it more. So I think it was important for me to lean into that, so it didn't just become an action film, that it had some heart behind it, and you know, there's relatable storytelling there as well.
And
Jeremy,
I just want to add that, like, part of our job too is, like, we're playing with somebody else's toys in their sandbox, and like, it would be the height of, you know, arrogance to think, oh, I'm just going to take all this stuff that Ed has, you know, fostered through how many years, and we're just going to throw it away, and we're just going to do our own version, and, you know, screw you and all that, all the fans, we're going to do our own version. It's like, no, our job is to kind of honor that and make sure that we are playing with those toys in the proper fashion, and maybe we can come up with something else. I mean, luckily, Rick and I mean, we've done like 10 movies at this point. So, you know, we've been like really collaborative, and we talk a lot about this stuff. And so when we get excited, and then Ed and Dominic get excited, and it just, our job is to get everybody else excited. I just feel very lucky, because I feel like the fans have responded really well. I haven't gotten near the amount of hate I've gotten on Scooby-Doo, so that's total plus. You know, but I'm just grateful.
You know, I just want to just add to that a little bit. Like, I want to have Ed involved. Like, Jeremy and I want to get feedback from, you know, NetherRealm, because it's important for this to be authentic. And the great thing that was sort of surprising to me early on was, I remember we were showing them like different locations that we could potentially have fight scenes in and things like that. And Ed was like, oh, well, why don't we see something new here? You know, like, it didn't all have to come from the video game. And I think that's the thing that's really cool about it, is like, Ed keeps us true to, you know, what's been done before, but also wants to show new things, you know, wants to show new areas of the world and expand upon it. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I think
go ahead, Joe.
I think the huge action scene at the Jimmy Buffett concert was amazing.
Yes.
So unexpected.
Yeah, it really was.
Really pushing it.
Color me surprised. Yeah, that was wonderful. That definitely was wonderful. Ed, for you and for the team, what's it like for NetherRealm to see this mythology and characters expressed in an animated film, particularly one that is allowed to be so stylistic and so brutal? It feels like they don't have to compensate or compromise. They bring the violence, they bring the brutality that is Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I thought it was a little tame.
Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. We've been fortunate enough, actually, you know, we've seen Mortal Kombat in, you know, comic books, and there've been a whole bunch of spin-offs. This one I'm particularly proud of. There's just there's a part of what I call like the identity of Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat does a lot of things, you know, ridiculously over the top. Obviously, the violence is there, but on top of that is, as everybody was saying, there is the foundation of a story in there, and there are memorable characters. You know, I really feel these characters have become, you know, similar to, you know, like a DC universe or a Marvel universe. You know, there's an entire kind of category of these characters that we can introduce new ones, but those have also been represented in a whole bunch of different formats. And Mortal Kombat is approaching that. It's kind of getting to the point where it's almost expected that a new form of storytelling can be applied to yet another Mortal Kombat thing. But, you know, this one in particular, like I said, I think they nailed the big ones. You know, there is a deep story. The violence it's to the point where when I watched it, I literally would verbally say, oh, come on, like you didn't have to do that. And if that's the case, then they clearly get it. And so to me, it's just a huge thrill, and to be included in the conversation of, you know, where is it going, it just makes it that much more, you know, that much more pride for all of us in our studio of seeing these things. These you know, people are really going to dig this one, and just like the first one, and that's hopefully this isn't the last one, you know?
As a longtime Mortal Kombat fan, I'm so proud and so happy to point to these films and go, this is it. You need to watch it, folks. And all my friends, when they saw the first one, they went, yeah, more please. So I'm sure they're all going to be happy to see this one. So let's go back to you, Jordan. When it comes to informing how to voice the character, you mentioned on day 2 of doing all the grunts and the fight sounds. Does playing the game or looking at Mortal Kombat iterations in the past help inform what sounds to make during that process?
Yeah, absolutely. Like playing the game, and you know, as I mentioned in the first interview for the first film, I got a lot of inspiration from Bruce Lee, and I sort of brought that into the booth. And you know, as I said, you kind of have to get very physical in there to the point where you're actually breaking a sweat a little bit. But yeah, that's sorry. It's like 4:45 a.m. here. I'm still waking up. The voice is still working up. I have to, yeah, you know, do those warm-ups again. What was the question?
Do some grunts. Just grunt a little bit.
Yeah, do some fight grunts. No, it was, do you play any of the games or look at Mortal Kombat in previous iterations to help inform the grunts, the fight noises, all the fun voiceover stuff that you get to do with this character?
Yeah, I think in the first film, you know, we were just really exploring the range, I guess. And in the second film, you know, he goes sort of into the higher pitch when he's leveling up, in a sense. When he goes kind of, I don't know if I could say this, but Super Saiyan. He kind of goes crazy. And that was kind of the direction they wanted it in. And watching it, I just watched it last night, and it really sort of like translates into this, you know, the internal frustration that he's going through. You know, internalizing all that pressure that's sort of been put on him, and his kind of self-doubt within his role. And to see it come, you know, to manifest into what happens at the end of this film is just really, really cool. And I don't know, I was pretty nervous to watch it and to sort of hear my voice, but I really like how the direction that it went.
And this film is packed with a lot of great performances. Every performance is great. We have Gray Griffin as Katana, Patrick Seitz as Scorpion. We have Ike Amadi as Jax. So Rick, for you, what performances really caught your eye and ear, and how excited were you to get just a wonderful cast together for this?
Oh, I mean, that's such a difficult question to answer, because like, you know, like, well, because they're sitting right here.
Because there's 3 of us here, so you know.
Yeah, carefully, buddy.
No, you know, I was just happy to have everyone back, and you know, to let them develop these characters a little bit more. You know, like Jeremy mentioned earlier, while we were doing the first one, I think right after the record, I'm like texting him like, okay, we need more Johnny Cage, because he's friggin' hilarious, and you know, I want to see more of that. But you know, just having everyone back, and you know, Jennifer Carpenter, she's great in this as well. It's just a lot of fun. I've worked with Gray on a lot of projects, so playing with all these amazing talents is just wonderful to be able to do.
And these characters are so iconic. They've been around for quite some time. And there were moments that happened in this film where I shouted for joy. I freaked out because I thought it was so great, not just with the characters themselves in Mortal Kombat, but also in response to the fans, and how hardcore fans are going to notice so many Easter eggs and elements and moments that are going to make them freak out. So when I saw one of these moments, it was 2 iconic characters doing like the Predator handshake, like Dylan, you son of a, and then it hits the other hand and they teleport out of there. I thought, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So that's just me being a fan and you know, a super fan of Mortal Kombat. I can't imagine when everybody else who loves the franchise as much as I do are going to see this stuff. Did you have moments like that watching the final version where you thought, oh my gosh, this totally paid off, this totally worked, I can't believe it, it's amazing? Jeremy, I mean, you had it from script form to now. Do you have a couple of those moments with no spoilers?
You know,
Or
me,
swearing.
it's weird because it's like you said, I'm a huge 80s action nerd. So this is all like, you know, it's in my brain. What's great for me is that in animation, you turn in the script, you do the thing, and then it goes off to the magic land where all the elves make it. And then I've forgotten about it. And so when it comes back, I'm like, ooh, I get to watch this. There is a scene, there is a fatality that happens that I screamed, and I was like, oh my gosh, like and my wife and I were both just kind of like, no, you know, and it was a really exciting moment. and there's also at the beginning, I have to say, because I remember writing very specifically in an animation, you know, you need to be careful because you don't really have an unlimited budget. And I wrote, hey, this, and I tried to frame it in the script, like, we're not going to spend this much money here. Look, this is how we're doing. And then Rick is like, nah, we're going Lord of the Rings. And I'm like, I'm going to get blamed for this. Like, storyboard artists are going to blame me, and it's your fault because he decided like thousands of animated soldiers, you know? So that was really fun to see.
Well, there are some truly amazing sequences with little to no dialogue in this film. How are you able to build that in a script form and then a storyboard form and then the final product? Do you feel that was kind of one of the more difficult processes or one of the more easier ones? Jeremy, I'll let you answer that one.
I mean, Rick can tell you, I write a lot of action scenes and stuff to springboard for other people. And having silent moments is not my forte necessarily. So I think probably Rick has to be like, hey, maybe we should cut this out and have a silent moment. And it's like, oh yeah, man, that's probably better. And everybody keeps me honest. It's not just Rick and the storyboard guys. Like, you know, Joel's really good at this. I mean, specifically, if I had a really fragile ego, which I do, and I'm in therapy for, but Joel's like, hey, that's a dumb line that has been used 100 times. And I'll go, well, he's right. Like, I can't help it. So it's like, you have to rely on the other craftsmen that are joining this thing. You have to know that animation is a collaborative art form from beginning to end, and put your ego aside and just try to make the best thing. So those things, you know, I write what I write. I get excited about it, but I leave it up to the other people too, to just add their flavor, you know?
How do you know how far you can go in terms of violence? I know in the video game world, we've had this conversation in the past with the rating system, et cetera. So Rick, as you know, as a producer, do you have kind of a guide of what to go by, or do you just throw everything to the board creatively and then they'll get to you after the fact?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's how I approach it. That's what I tell the team is just go for it. Don't try to pull back. Don't try to guess what is, you know, gonna be usable or not, or get us a worse rating or anything like that. Like, don't inhibit your creativity that way. Just go for it. And if somebody pulls us back, it's easier to pull back than to have to push further, you know?
Then Ed, without going into any spoilers, are there any rules that are set of characters that can kill, that will do fatalities, and characters that will not do fatalities, like in the animated film? Or, hey, we don't want this person being killed in the movie? Or are there any rules set, or is NetherRealm kind of open to the majority of the creative process of what people bring to the table?
Are there any rules?
Yeah.
Nope.
Whoever Ed finds annoying is going to die.
Yeah.
I think if I were to complain about killing a Mortal Kombat character, I'd be the biggest hypocrite in the world. We've killed our characters multiple times. The first movie killed Scorpion, so to speak, and look, he's back. And so these if it works in the story, we do it. If it's just gratuitous, then we'll push back a little bit.
Right on. Dave B. Mitchell, as a voice of Raiden, for you, was there any particular moments or lines that really stuck out to you, that resonated with you, going, oh, this, I really click here, or this is going to be a beautiful story with Raiden? And for you, when did that excitement really happen, when you started to see the lines and understand what this character was going to be in the film?
I can't think of anything specific. It just sort of the entire experience of you know, coming off the first movie, which was, you know, I loved where they were taking Raiden with that, and then we were able to and you know, the fact that we were able to in large ways, some literal and some figurative, humanize Raiden in this film. So just so much of that stuff, getting to play that sort of self-sacrificial thing, which is, that's one of my hot buttons. I have this thing for the idea of self-sacrifice always moves me, and it's, you know, and it speaks to me in a fundamental way. So getting to take Raiden there was really cool. And to see him putting it all on the line, because as you pointed out earlier, you know, Raiden genuinely cares. It's not that it's just his job or his fate to do this thing. He genuinely cares about the welfare of Earthrealm. He does. You know, he's protector, and that's, and he's willing to put everything he has on the line in order to do that job. So nothing specific, just sort of overall the whole story. And there are just so many wonderful quiet moments with Raiden. And then when he has occasionally a moment where he gets a little bit louder, which, you know, one of the great things with this compared to so many other things that I do is that I don't have to do any yelling. So, you know, Raiden is pretty even keel, but when he does raise his voice, it's never huge, but when he does, you see the steel that is him. And that gets never lost, even in the quieter moments. It's there, but it's just such a wonderful thing to get to play that grounded quality that he has. You know, for being a god, it's pretty cool to play a god that really has a genuine emotional reaction to things, and an investment in you know, the people he's charged with protecting. And just for, as an actor, just wonderful to get to play those quiet, real moments, because you just get to tap into that sort of universal thing that we all experience, and to be able to share that with a character like Raiden is just, I mean, yeah.
Dave, we're still waiting for a specific line.
It's all of it.
I think one of them had something to do with "Shut Up, Johnny Cage."
Oh.
That was probably my favorite line. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite Raiden line was, "I am Raiden."
That took me, I think, 87 takes.
Yeah, it took a while. I waited outside, but
finding the subtext was really, yeah, that was tricky. That was tricky.
David Finchered the hell out of that one.
That's the idea. Yeah.
Well, you all did an amazing job. This film is incredible. I implore everybody to go out and see it. That's going to wrap up our panel for today. So quick reminder, Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms will be available starting August 31st on digital, Blu-ray, and 4K Ultra HD combo pack from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. Pre-orders are now available. I want to thank my panelists, Rick Morales, Jeremy Adams, Dave B. Mitchell, Ed Boon, Jordan Rodrigues, and Joel McHale. Thanks everybody for joining us.
And a special shout out to Jordan for waking up at the crack of whatever he
yeah.
Yeah.
Very impressive. I would have said no, but very impressive, sir.
Well, that's why Jordan is the chosen one. Right on.
That's right.
Sleep right now.
Well, thank you everybody.
I'm starting to get the garbage trucks in the background there too. That was happening. I'm sorry.
No, we love you, Jordan. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for watching us, everybody at Comic-Con at home. Thanks again. Go check out the movie. See you next time.
Thank you.